When you think about caves in Pokemon games, if I had to guess, your first thought is likely inconvenience. A dungeon where you have to use an HM that you didn't even know existed, and now you're stuck navigating it in the dark with no repels and no potions. Rock tunnel, I am looking at you, girl. I hate you. What if I told you that there is one cave in the Pokemon franchise that I don't view as an inconvenience? A cave that serves an actual narrative purpose, driving the plot forward, and as a beautiful, in-depth place that's exciting to revisit. I am talking about Mount Cornet. Mount Cornet is so much more than your typical blockade in a Pokemon game. In fact, I would go as far as to argue that Mount Cornet is you, the player. You are the mountain. You just gotta stay with me here for a second. One of the first places you visit when you begin your journey through the Sinnoh region is Mount Cornet. After playing through the game and collecting a few badges, the first time you enter the mountain range is likely right before Hearthome City, although you can enter it a little earlier. PSA, the first time you enter Mount Cornet is not right before Orberg City, like I thought it was for a while. No, that's obviously Orberg Gate. I mean, can you seriously not tell the difference? Your first few steps you take through Mount Cornet are pretty uneventful. You meet this 27-year-old man who definitely looks 27, and you walk through the cave. That is it. Honestly, a welcome experience after the hell that we experienced in caves like Mount Moon, Rock Tunnel, Dark Cave. There's nothing to see here. No HMs to use yet. Just move right along. And to me, that feels correct as a brand new trainer with only like 2 gym badges to their name. If you look around the cave a bit more before you leave, you can see obstacles that you aren't quite ready for yet. Mount Cornet starts to become much bigger and more complex the more you explore it throughout the game and the more you, the player, grow. Mount Cornet is a reflection of the player and their journey throughout the Sinnoh region. As you progress the story, Mount Cornet progresses too and opens up, becoming a giant representation of your expedition. And listen, maybe I sound crazy right now, but 12 years ago on PokemonCommunity.com, someone else brought up how important Mount Cornet feels compared to other caves in standard Pokemon games. So I'm not alone here. To say nothing of the fact that Mount Cornet is one of the first things you see when you boot up a Gen 4 save file. When your playthrough begins, the TV you're watching shows the dark skies above Mount Cornet, setting the stage for this mountain to be a consistent mainstay throughout your journey, both in gameplay and narratively. I normally don't care for backtracking in games. I recently got so lost so many times trying to navigate the Hoenn region in my Pokemon Sapphire video, but I love the way Mount Cornet's backtracking works. You see secrets that you don't have access to or you're not ready for, like the mountain is telling you to slow down and be patient. There's no rush, you'll get there when you get there. In this way, it kind of feels like a Metroidvania game hidden within this larger Pokemon game. I've been playing through Hollow Knight for the first time recently, and this feeling of seeing a thing I can't traverse yet, but I know I'll be able to later when I have a new ability or item, it's exciting. Always in the back of your mind is the question of what will I see when I come back there with the right tools? I definitely understand strength puzzles and rock smash puzzles seeming more like a roadblock or a chore rather than an exciting journey to come, but I was 9 years old when I played Diamond for the first time. When I first saw the rock climb stones scaling up alongside a high rocky mountain, that had my 9-year-old brain flipping through pages of possibilities as to what that could be, how to interact with it, or where it could even lead. Okay, so am I crazy for hyperfixating on this? Probably, but I love looking deeper into Pokemon games like this, and I actually think we should be thinking more deeply about video games as our attention spans become shorter and shorter with every reel we're served on Instagram. It's fun to think critically and make real-world connections with the media we watch, play, and read. While working on this video, I started reading a lot more about the Sinnoh region and the inspiration behind it. Finally, my BA in history is actually being used on my YouTube channel. The entirety of the Sinnoh region is based on Hokkaido, the northernmost prefecture in Japan. Hokkaido is the second largest of Japan's 4 major islands, and despite being the second largest and 20% of Japan's territory, only about 4% of Japan's population lives in Hokkaido, mainly due to the freezing weather and terrain and how difficult it can be to get there. And I feel like the Gen 4 games do a fantastic job of portraying the terrain and weather through places like Route 216 and the rock climb HM being introduced. The Sinnoh region's terrain is cold and the main characters are, literally wearing their winter outfits. I remember the first time I played Pokemon Platinum as a kid and saw the snow on the ground in Twinleaf. I was so excited to see weather and a change from the Diamond and Pearl Twinleaf town, albeit a tiny one. I think Snow Point City and its music does a really great job of depicting a quiet glacial town, two words that came up a lot when learning about Hokkaido. And while I was reading more on Hokkaido, I noticed how little I had learned about it during classes on Japanese modernization compared to the rest of Japan whenever I was in university for my history degree. And with Pokemon Legends Arceus existing, I think reading up and learning about the history of Hokkaido, originally known as Ezo prior to 1869, makes learning more about the history even more interesting. I cannot recommend enough watching Shukel's video, An Expansive Look at Pokemon Legends Arceus, if you'd like to think critically about Legends Arceus and how naive the game is towards the actual history of Ezo and its people. I'm gonna link down below some articles, a documentary, and a memoir I read about Hokkaido just while I was getting super hyper fixated on the Sinnoh region. So if you want to join me, there's the resources down below. Real quick, a word from this video's sponsor. I would like to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring today's video. I have been putting off finding a therapist for 4 years. But literally last week, like 5 days ago, I finally locked in and I used ZocDoc and I found one for myself. It was so easy, it took 2 seconds, and yet I've been putting it off for 4 years. And that is because I love to put off small tasks and make them feel like bigger problems. But ZocDoc made it super easy for me, especially as somebody who deals with phone call anxiety. So, of course, when ZocDoc reaches out for a sponsorship, I'm always inclined to say yes, because they really help me out in my personal life. ZocDoc makes prioritizing your health easier, letting you search and compare local, in-network doctors. They have more than 150,000 providers with over 200 specialties across all 50 states. And you can set up your appointments super quickly. I have made plenty of same-day appointments with ZocDoc. And I didn't have to call anybody to set up my appointment. It was easy just doing it online same day. And the best part is ZocDoc is free to use. So if you are currently putting off scheduling that annual appointment or finding a doctor, this sponsorship is for you. I get it. It's very, very difficult. It can be so hard to work up the courage to call or prioritize yourself, but let this be your sign to start taking care of yourself. It may seem small, but by clicking the link in the description, you can take a giant step towards prioritizing your health, and you will be so glad that you did so. Thank you so much, ZocDoc, for sponsoring today's video. I strayed a bit from the focus of this video, Mount Cornet, but let's dial in on this mountain and focus on how the centerpiece of Sinnoh progresses alongside us throughout our journey. As you and your Pokemon level up, you begin to realize how much bigger this mountain really is. It's full of lakes, fog, and rich history with legendaries tied to our very own existence. And as a kid, I never thought that this tiny little cave would eventually lead me all the way up to the summit and Spear Pillar. Mount Cornet's conclusion being Spear Pillar and the Distortion World, if you're playing Platinum, is something that will stick with me forever. Instead of defeating the evil Pokemon team in a giant maze-like building or hideout, you're battling Cyrus with what feels like the highest stakes ever, as the sky around you changes to a deep, dark horror. Also, shout out to Gen 3 because the conclusion of those games were, equally as epic. The finale of Mount Cornet, though, it's incredible and a worthy stage for the player and Team Galactic to take their bows. You use all of the HMs you've learned throughout your journey to climb your way to the summit. And I love that as we climb this mountain, we get to go outside of it and see just how high up we are and how isolated and cold the summit really is. It's like looking down at all the progress you've made and how far you've come. Hail pours from the sky while hidden items are scattered across the land and walls. It's like an explorer's dream. I completely understand if you're watching this video and you're just like, girl, that mountain is so ugly and annoying to get through. I get it. I think especially if you're playing through the Gen 4 games for the first time as an adult, needing 1 million HMs at the ready isn't the most fun thing you could be doing with your time. Using the rock climb HM definitely isn't as exciting in 2026 as it was in 2009. If I could change a few things about Mount Cornet, it would definitely be making the inside of the dungeon a little more unique and memorable. It's super easy to get lost in because everything looks the same, and this isn't just a Mount Cornet problem. Pokemon games today still have this issue where everything looks the same. And listen, I'm not trying to be a modern day Pokemon game hater because I do enjoy them. I have a lot of fun, but if you watched my Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video, then you know I am not too thrilled with the way Pokemon games have been looking and the lack of sauce that they have, if you don't mind me using the technical term. As I've been writing this, I keep thinking about a Mount Cornet with a more varied environment. How cool it would have been to have more distinct features in the cave so that if I mentioned Mount Cornet's third floor, you'd know exactly which one I was talking about. However, I could be asking too much of a game that is on its way to being 20 years old. Yeah, I haven't felt this connected to an area in a Pokemon game in a long time. I think Area Zero had a lot of potential in Scarlet and Violet, but it was introduced to us so late in the game and we spent such a little amount of time exploring it that it never really stuck with me, especially since the finale takes place inside the lab at the bottom. But since this could very well be nostalgia talking, I think now is a great time to ask what your favorite area in a Pokemon game is. Is there an area in an older game or a newer game that has really stuck with you over the past few years, and if so, why? Was it the Pokemon, the story, the music, or are you also just a victim to sweet, sweet nostalgia? Okay, I have a few other honorable mentions to say. There are so many areas in the Hoenn region that have just stuck with me for so long. Specifically, the few that come to my mind. One, Fortree City. Fortree City is so iconic. I had never, seen a city that looked like that before. Same with Pacifilog Town as well. Like, Hoenn really went all out with just really unique, cool towns. Sootopolis, where you like dive in and get to it with all like the white rock. Moss Deep City is sick as hell. It's a beach that you just kind of like run into. I think Fortree has always really stuck with me because I really liked making secret bases where all of those trees are. I always made my secret bases in that area, and so I just always associate Fortree with like my little secret base shenanigans. Maybe I need to make a whole other video on Hoenn, honestly. But Fall Arbor Town is so sick. I love Meteor Falls. I love when you walk into Meteor Falls and it's like da-da-da, da-da-da. The music is really good. I also love Slateport City. I've mentioned it in previous videos, but it was the first beach that like I ever really walked on since I never went on vacations as a kid. Hoenn has such like a great balance of like normal standard, oh, this is a city town, and then like towns that really use the environment around them to make themselves unique. Hoenn is just cool. There are so many memorable places in the Hoenn region, and I feel like I had to do an honorary shout out to all of them. And I asked my editor, Paul, who's editing this video right now. Everybody say hi, Paul. Hi, Paul. Paul, what's your favorite place in a Pokemon game? Like what place really, resonates with you and has stuck with you all these years? And Paul has also recorded his thoughts and opinions for you.
Thank you, Arlie, for letting me yap about my Pokemon opinions. I have a lot of them. One place that's always really stuck out to me is Nimbasa City, specifically the Rendezvous Ferris wheel. I'll always be a sucker for the little character moments in these games, and I'd be hard-pressed to find somewhere else that provides as many as this one does. Not only do you get special interactions with N, Bianca, and Sharon, but it's also tied to one of the most convoluted but beautiful side quests in the entire franchise, where you meet either Curtis or Yancy. After getting to know these unknown characters over the course of 50 phone calls, it all culminates to this spot. And when you finally meet, you ride the Ferris wheel with them, and then they gift you Pokemon that you can't find anywhere else in Unova. For as unassuming as a Ferris wheel can be, it really did provide some of the most authentic moments I've had in a Pokemon game.
Ignoring my nostalgia for a second though, I do genuinely think that this dungeon, especially compared to its earlier counterparts from the first 3 generations, holds up. It establishes a meaningful connection between your progress as a player and your traversal through the world. Mount Cornet will always be one of my favorite areas in all of Pokemon because of the curiosity it invoked inside me as a kid, and the journey we both went on together back in 2009. Thank you for watching.